Hello, welcome to Guangzhou, China. I'm going to be attempting something new. I have been absolutely terrible updating my blog. This is due to the fact that I just don't have a whole lot of time to sit down and write everything. It kind of takes a lot longer than I thought it was going to. And I'm just terrible at remembering to do it. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a different and easier way of being able to update everything that I've been doing for the last couple months and then continuing on through the next year. The last blog that I've just updated was August, if you've been following along. If you haven't, there's going to be a link below in the description. This one I'm going to be starting with September, and hopefully I will be able to continue this vlog throughout at least once a month, hopefully bi-weekly if I can push myself to do that. Be a lot easier. It will be, I'm sure, an interesting and awkward experience for both myself and everybody who decides to watch this. So right now I'm going to start with September. These are the things that I've done throughout the course of that month here in China. And I apologize for the time delay. It is from the wonders of Chinese technology. I'm using a Chinese computer right now. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get a camera in the next little while, and that should help correct this. But for now, just bear with me. So September 1st to the 3rd, I ended up actually leaving Guangzhou for a little bit, about an hour and a half drive out of the city, and a bunch of us rented a house together, and we ended up having a big house party over the weekend. We got left Tuesday night right after work. Everybody headed up to the house. The idea, I think, was just to kind of get out of the city, just hang out. It ended up essentially just being like a giant frat party at a different location that we had to pay money to be at. But it was still a lot of fun. We had one of our Chinese friends, she had this guy that she knew, and he ended up driving myself, Paul, and Rayan up to the house after work, and his car broke down a couple times. We had to stop at one point because the window, he rolled it down to pay a fare, and he couldn't roll the window back up, and it was kind of chilly, so we had to stop and fix the window. We finally got to the other town, and his car actually broke down. Completely blame Rayan for this one, because she made a comment about how wouldn't it be hilarious if we had to push the car, because I've never got to do that before. She didn't actually push the car, I might add. That was Paul and myself. Finally made it to the house. Lots of drinking, lots of different games, some mahjong. We went down to this pool that we had access to through the house that we were staying at. Went swimming for an afternoon. Ate lots of different kinds of Chinese foods. It was overall a pretty good weekend, though about the same thing that we probably would have done in Guangzhou, just in a different setting. The house itself was really cool. There was 2 different levels. There was a downstairs level with a couple rooms, and then an upstairs level that you had to actually go outside to get there. So it was kind of like 2 separate apartments, but we got both of them. The downstairs was Europe. It was very European. It looked like kind of like a little house that you would have lived in France or Spain. And then upstairs was America. Upstairs in America, that's where actually most of the drinking games took place. And downstairs is where mahjong and a lot of the actual Chinese things took place. Some tea and our food and everything like that. For the most part, we just played regular drinking games, but there's one that we played. It's called Fuck the Dealer. You have to guess what the number is of the card. You have 2 chances. If you get it right, the dealer, the person with the deck of cards, has to drink. If you get it wrong, you drink, and the dealer has to try and get 3 people to drink in a row before they can pass the deck along and make somebody else the dealer. But you can screw people over by cheating, which is completely acceptable in this game. You can kind of glance over their shoulder and try and help out the person who's guessing what the number is. And this is so much easier in China to cheat this way because there's actually a system for your hands, like rather than, whereas for us we would just like 10, 6, it's very obvious that we would be cheating. After 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the same in China. When you get to 6, though, this is 6, this is 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So if there's a 6 there and you need to help the person out, you can just kind of casually do this. Just brush your hair out of your face, and they actually know. So we ended up screwing over one of our friends, and he was dealer for probably a good hour. But it was maybe not the nicest thing to do, but it was a lot of fun. When we came back on the 4th, we were supposed to just have a regular day, but the center filled with smoke again. So we ended up having half of the day off, and we all ended up at the brew for some more drinking games. On the 7th, it was Cammie's goodbye party. So Cammie was the LLD at THP where I work, a good friend of mine. And she has left Disney for new and better adventures off in Japan. So on the 7th, we had a goodbye party for her. We started out at Social & Co., which is a bar in Zhejiang Newtown area, actually right around the area she lived in. She lived right above the brew. So we ended up starting there because that's where she kind of hung out with a lot of people and had Long Island iced teas. So we decided to do a Cammified goodbye party for her. Everybody had to wear really nerdy t-shirts. I'm surprised we didn't get kicked out of Social & Co. I think we left just at the right time before they started to get really frustrated with us. And of course we ended up at the brew, and where else would we end up doing that? But there for her, because that's where she spent a lot of her time. If she wasn't at the center, she was at the brew, which was literally right below her house. We ended up doing a couple inception shots. A bunch of us did it in a line. I think there was 10 of us at one point all taking an inception shot. People sang. It was good, but it was very bittersweet because unfortunately Cammie is no longer in China, which is sad for us, but great for her. She's absolutely loving Japan as far as I can tell. On the 9th, I ended up going to Yushui, which is a ram garden. It's one of the most famous gardens in China. I will also put a link on my blog with some information that you guys can go and read about it, and there'll be some pictures up there as well. I ended up going there with Walt. I think I mentioned in the August blog that you're going to be hearing about him a lot. He's kind of going to be a reoccurring character. Well, this is the first point that you'll get to meet him in September. Was on the 9th, so we went to the gardens. Oddly enough, for being a famous garden in Guangzhou and for me being here for a full year, this was the first time I had actually been. Beautiful garden. It's massive, and there was like a lot of areas where there was no people, which was amazing. You're rarely alone in China, and it's a very beautiful thing when you can find a place where you can just barely hear the city. It was really, really nice out, but as we arrived to the garden, like to meet up, it started to sprinkle. Thought, okay, well maybe, a little bit of rain, that's okay. Less people, it'll be great. It started pouring the minute we got actually into the garden. Like, if you think of movie set rain, you watch those really cheesy romantic dramas like The Notebook, and they're kissing in the rain, and it's just, as we would say, raining cats and dogs, like completely pouring down on them, and you think that is the most fake rain I've ever seen. There's no way that happens in real life. It happens in China a lot. It doesn't happen for long, but it happens. So we ended up being completely drenched. Decided we were already wet. We might as well keep walking around the park. There were different areas to the garden. Like, it is a massive garden. So at one point we ended up in the fables section. So there's all these different statues. Then we went through the bamboo forest. And then we ended up at the wall. So there was a chunk of old wall that you could actually go and walk along, which was really cool. By the time we had left the garden, it stopped raining. And we ended up just kind of hanging out, chilling, watching some movies together. overall, it was a very relaxing day. It was kind of nice. I got to see some more of Guangzhou that I hadn't seen before, and it was a really good time. On the 16th was a bachelorette party. So one of my Chinese friends here, Ruby, she got married in September, and I was invited to go to the bachelorette party. This is probably as close to a North American bachelorette party as you would ever find in China. Ruby had actually lived in America for a couple of years, working for Walt Disney in Florida. So she is more, she's used to the different things that foreigners do, but she still has that very traditional Chinese aspect to her where she's very reserved still. So it was kind of interesting. Megan was in charge of everything and asked me to make a penis cake for her. It was massive, a huge penis cake. It was about 3 cakes all kind of mushed together to form a penis. Nobody told me how many people were actually coming. I could probably have made it a little smaller, but it ended up being something like 20 inches long and 12 inches wide. We actually had to go buy a plastic drawer from IKEA so that we could put the cake inside the drawer so we could transport it from my house to the restaurant that we were going to. Absolutely ridiculous. But it was a lot of fun. We ended up going for Thai food, and then we ended up at a hotel room that Ruby had rented out, where we all decided to eat the penis cake, played some games, had some drinks, and of course it's a bachelorette party. We had to watch porn, which we turned into a drinking game. It was a whole bunch of girls and Paul. So the porn drinking game was very interesting because Paul was still there for that one. But he kind of fits. He's pretty much one of the girls at that point. But that was a lot of fun. The next day, however, on the 17th, I was supposed to get my visa renewal done because at the end of September, my contract was up. So I had to renew my visa because I had resigned for another year. I was told that the hotel that Ruby had rented was actually closer to the visa office than where I live. That was false information. It took me an hour to get from the hotel to the visa place. It was the most painful walk ever because I had gone to bed at 5:30 in the morning and I had to get up at 9 o'clock that morning so that I could get to the visa office. Would have been so much faster to go home that night, a little earlier, like 3 in the morning even, and then I could have gone from my place. So much faster, but you live and learn. And then the same day, on the 17th, I had told Walt that I would meet up with him at 1 o'clock after the visa registration. So it was a very long day. Thankfully, all Walt wanted to do was watch movies. He had just gotten to China, like I said, in August. And he was in Panyu and had no internet. I think he finally had an apartment at this point, I believe, but was had created a competition, I guess you could call it, with the LLD at Panyu Food Center, more or less stating that he could probably go for 2 months without internet. So anytime that we hang out, he kind of likes to watch movies and things because he has no access to internet at his place, which that day I was completely okay with it because I was exhausted. So I went from the hotel to the visa department, and then I met Walt outside of IKEA, and we ended up watching a bunch of horror movies that night and got some pizza. And I made everything incredibly awkward the way that only I can do, I'm sure. But he still hung out with me, and he still decided he wanted to hang out with me again after that, so must be okay. On the 19th of September, it was Ruby's actual wedding. So it was the first time I had ever been to a Chinese wedding. Like I said, Ruby, she has lived in America before for a little bit of time, so she is used to some more Western customs, but the wedding itself was more formal Chinese. That doesn't mean, however, that it's any different than a North American wedding for the most part. So when you first show up, the major difference that you see is that the bride and the groom are both there and they're taking pictures with everybody that walks in the door. You also register, you sign your name, saying like that you were at the wedding, and then you get a little envelope full of money. It's called a hongbao, so little red envelope. It is tradition that married people, they usually give their single friends money during different holidays. Well, it's the same thing for weddings, I guess. If when you get married, you give out little pieces of money to guests, just random amounts. So we got there right out of work because it was a Saturday. We had to leave from work and then had to wake up early the next day for work. So we didn't stay long, but it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful ceremony. We got there, took some pictures with Ruby, and then we ended up sitting down at the table she reserved for us. All Disney members. So when you walk into the hall, it's essentially walking into the banquet hall. So unlike North American weddings where you go to a church first or to some area for a ceremony, you watch the ceremony and then you go to the banquet hall and eat, and you do all of the bouquet toss and garter toss and things like that. They do everything in the exact same room. There was no ceremony space necessarily. So we go in, you sit at the tables, and there was a giant stage at one end of the hall, and they had a MC, which it kind of felt like we were at a game show for a lot of it. It was a little weird. Then he kept announcing different things, all in, I think, Cantonese. And then Ruby and Kevin, her husband now, they walked down this length of aisle that was in between, like in the middle of the hall, in between all of the tables. And they sang a song, a duet together. And then they did a toast. They drank some wine. And then they went up to the stage, and then there was a whole series of different things. So all of the things that we do in North America at weddings happened, but on the stage with an MC announcing everything before they did it. So they did the cutting of the cake. They did the bouquet toss. There was some speeches from the best man and the maid of honor. There was speeches from the parents. There were speeches from the bride and the groom to the parents. There was a wine pouring ceremony of sorts, and then the vows and exchanging of rings. And then it was over. It was kind of it, and then all of a sudden it was a family-style dinner. Everybody ate, and it was over. It was not long at all. I thought it was going to go on forever and ever, like most weddings do. The whole entire production, once it got started, from start to finish, including the dinner, we were there for maybe 3 hours. That was it. That was the entire wedding. It was like a 3-hour-long wedding. The one cool thing that happens at Chinese weddings that would be kind of neat to introduce to North American weddings, I think, was the groom and all of the groomsmen walked around to every single table, and they had to drink with every table. So I'm sure the groom gets completely smashed at his wedding, which I think as the bride you might have a little bit of a problem with, considering that kind of eats into your wedding night. But either way, the groom and the groomsmen, they go around and they drink some wine or shots or whatever the table wants them to drink with them. A lot of times they make them ganbei, which they drink the whole entire drink. And then the bride and her bridesmaids, they walk around and they drink tea with every single table. Some more adventurous brides, I think, will drink alcohol, but Ruby drank tea with everybody. She also changed her dress like 3 times, I think it was, she was beautiful in all of them. But that is definitely a more traditional thing for the Chinese women to change their dresses over and over again, whereas usually in North America, it's just people with a lot of money decide to do that. As well, there was a big production that happened on screen. They created this big film about their wedding, and in it, they got to see what the groom had to go through to get the bride. So part of Chinese weddings leading up to the wedding day, the groom and the groomsmen, they have to help him out. They have to go through a series of tasks that the bridesmaids set up in order to get the bride. So he's already proposed, he's given her the ring, she has said yes, but the bridesmaids, they come up with a series of random tasks, whatever they want. It could be sing a song, it could be declare your love, drink out of a shoe, anything. Write a poem. They dictate what the groom has to do in order to get the bride's hand. So they kind of have the final say. Like, if you suck at this, we don't like you. You can't marry my best friend. So you have to go through all these series of menial tasks in order to get the bride. And if you don't do a good job, we'll make you do something else. So we got to watch what Kevin had to do in order to get Ruby, which was kind of cool. Overall, really nice wedding. It was really cool to see the slight differences between the Chinese and North American weddings. On the 23rd, I ended up hanging out with Walt again. We went to this art gallery near my work in Tianhe District. It used to be a textile factory. So there was all these different areas of this factory, like different buildings in the complex. Completely abandoned, I think it was in the 60s or 70s, and it was turned into an art area. So different artists can rent out buildings around the factory and display their artwork. So it was really neat. You had a lot of different artwork. A lot of it was very modern. So there were things that you don't normally tend to see in Chinese art. So when you go to an art museum, a lot of the artwork looks very similar. You can see some influences from the Western world, just in the way that the work tends to become more 3D, more realistic from comparison to the 2D art, very flat. But overall, it's very similar look to everything over every single era and dynasty. The modern day art, however, has very, very strong 20th century North American, European influences. It's kind of cool to see the combination of the two, if not a little sad to see that some of their traditional cultural things are being forgotten and let go for more modern Western different things like that. It was a little sad, but it is really cool. Again, I'm going to throw a description up on my blog. There's some pictures as well there. It took us forever to find this place. Robbie told us that to look for the smokestack when we got out of the metro. Well, you get out of the metro, you can't see the smokestack is behind you, so we had to walk a little ways till we could finally see it. Turned, managed to find this place that we had to go to. Ended up having to walk down like this alleyway. Thought maybe we would die, but got there safe and sound. It was a long day, but that night I decided we were going to do the cruise. There is a cruise along the Pearl River here in Guangzhou. Well, I should say there are many cruises along the Pearl River here in Guangzhou, but we just happened to pick the cheapest one. It is definitely worth the money. We took a 50 kwai boat tour, which is about maybe $11 Canadian right now, $12 Canadian, for a 1 to 1.5 hour boat trip down the river. So it starts in Beijinglu, which is a older area of Guangzhou, and it ends up going all the way to Canton Tower, Lida, Zhujiang Newtown area, which is the newer area of Guangzhou. So you get to see the transition along the riverbank as the different architecture forms from the old Guangzhou to the new Guangzhou, which goes very Chinese to European. And when you get to the newer area, everything's lit up. So that's where the Canton Tower is, the big tower that lights up all different colors. It's very iconic. You can see it all over the internet. If you type in Guangzhou, that's the tower that comes up. The bridges are lit up. You can see one of the stadiums that was created for, it was not the Olympics, but there was another games that came to Guangzhou, and they created a stadium for it. That's there. It's all lit up. It's really cool. It's really peaceful. Completely worth the money. though I definitely recommend going at night. During the day, it would not be as wonderful. It would be just loud and a lot of people. At night, it was really nice and scenic and kind of relaxing. It took us forever to get there, though. So it was, Walt kind of made this comment that it reminded him a little bit of National Lampoon's Vacation, where it's like, we will have fun. You are going to go, and it's going to be fun, and you're going to enjoy it. Thankfully, we ended up actually enjoying it, but it probably very much how it went down in order to get us to the cruise was, I'm going to do this cruise. I've been waiting to do this cruise forever, and I don't care how tired you are, how tired I am, but we're going to do it anyway. Oddly enough, after all of that, and me being as awkward as a human being as I am, the next day, Walt and I, we had very long discussions. There were 3 different options that were thrown around on the table, and we decided that we would date. So I am no longer single. Like I said, he's going to be a reoccurring character. He embarrasses extremely easily, though, so I don't know if anybody will actually get to meet him. I will try and bring him on here just like as a hello so everybody can see who he is, what he looks like, what he sounds like. I'm sure at least family members and friends back home are wondering. But he will be a reoccurring character, so you'll probably hear his name a lot. Poor guy, when I first met him as well, like I have no idea why he's dating me. He really does embarrass really easily. We were in the metro the one day, and I just started to relax my wrists. This is a percussion thing that Nathan, my friend, used to do all the time, is you relax your wrist and you just kind of walk around, and you ends up being like you kind of look like a T-Rex, like a dinosaur, and you can walk around letting your wrists bounce. That's all I was doing. I was just letting them bounce slowly, just to relax them a little. And he ended up becoming embarrassed about that. So obviously I did it more. Just like the little things like that. I was told by Robbie that I will either be single in a month or I will endear myself to him. One or the other, there will be no in between. But when we first met, we were in the bar at the tavern, and it was really loud. He mentioned, I asked him what his name was, and I heard Wall. So I actually went like the Wall? He said, no, Walt. It's like, oh, like Walt Disney, the company that you're now working for? It's like, yes, the irony was not lost on him. But I kind of, I guess, made fun of him a little for that when I first met him. But he let that slide, and we actually are dating now. So, there you go. There's some news for you. On the 27th, we actually got a day off. It was the one Sunday that we've had off in I don't know how long. It was beautiful. And I ended up going to Bee's house for some barbecue. She's this real Florida girl who loves Southern barbecue and American cooking. So she decided to do some pulled pork and invited a bunch of people to her house. So we headed to her house for the day. We had some barbecue, some drinks. It was overall really good. It was one of those days where you were like, you don't want to leave your house. You want to just kind of hang out and do nothing, but it was absolutely worth leaving the house for that. And then on the 30th, it was the last day that we did anything in September, the last day of September. It was Paul's birthday. So we ended up going to the brew to celebrate Paul being older. Walt and some of the new people came. So 2 new girls showed up, and I am a Mushu to one of them, Haley. So this means that I have been here long enough now that I get to actually help somebody else with their job, if they need it, getting around Guangzhou, any and all Chinese that I know, getting phones, getting apartments, anything that they might need help setting up, getting them used to the culture shock. It is a little intimidating, I will admit, to be that person, especially when you feel like you maybe don't know quite as much as you would like. But it turns out I know a little bit more Chinese than I thought I did, which was kind of cool. But so Haley came along. She's from Colorado. Walt is also from Colorado, so they had some conversations about things that went completely over my head, but they knew what they were talking about. We did a whole bunch of inception shots for Paul because we were obviously at the brew, and it is his birthday, so he had to do regular inception shots and different inception shots, which we call Dreamweavers, that were created specifically for Paul. So where the inception shot, I've talked about this before, where it is a shot of tequila, which you take, and then a shot of Jaeger drops into some Red Bull, which you take, and then whiskey into beer, which you drink. The Dreamweaver is so much better. It is a shot of Jack, which when you take that, a shot of Bailey's drops into some Guinness. You drink the Irish Car Bomb, and then a shot of Fireball drops into some hard apple cider. So it's like an apple cinnamon cider. All very tasty. So much better than the traditional inception shot. But Paul had to do, obviously, I think 3 that night because it was his birthday. It was both a fun and bittersweet night, however, because we were celebrating Paul. It was great, but Paul has left the THP family to an extent. He is still with Disney, so not like Cammy and Joey where they actually left for other jobs or other countries. Paul is still working for Disney. He's still in Guangzhou, but he's no longer at THP. He has a different position within the company. So it was really sad for us. At least it's cool for him to get this new position. You know, hopefully it ends up being exactly what he wants it to be later on. But it's sad for us because I don't get to see him anymore every day at the center. It was kind of nice seeing him there. But it was also a really fun way to end September. The beginning of October was the holiday. So on my next vlog, I will go into more of that because this is already extremely long and I'm sure I've left out a whole bunch of details. On the blog, I'm going to put up some pictures, a couple little extra stories, anything I've forgotten. There will be links to a bunch of different things that if you guys are interested in, the Yushui Garden. I'll put up a link to the art gallery here in Guangzhou so you guys can see what I'm talking about and read about it a little bit. And I will try and find the name of the town that I went to for the house party at the beginning of September. Cannot remember where I went, but I will attempt to find that out, and I'll throw up a link to that as well so you can see where all of that is. I'm also going to try and put up a link to my house on Google Maps. So if anybody's interested, you can actually see where I am in Guangzhou. And along the way, anything else that I can think of, I will throw up on the blog. Next time I do this, I will be going into October. It will probably be just as long as this one. And then I will have to do one for all of November. That probably won't happen for a little while because the beginning of December I'm going away with Walt. We're going to Thailand. So that in itself will be a whole entire blog, I'm sure. But I'm going to do my best to keep everything up to date for you guys. I will throw up October hopefully in the next week or so, and then November after that. And then Thailand right after. It'll all kind of be in one big chunk after I get back from Thailand. And that way I will be completely up to date with everybody. And I will hopefully not fall behind again as much as I have. So that's everything. If you guys have any questions about anything that I've been doing, or you want to know more about something that I haven't mentioned or that I kind of glanced over, you guys can ask me. Feel free, let me know, write some comments, and I will see you guys all later. Okay, bye.